Greetings, WordPressers. Jakson here. How are you? Welcome to the channel. Nice to have you as always. So I've got a little series. I've been doing a little series for the last year or so with the missing blocks of WordPress. And this is part of that expose of some of the shortcomings of the default block offering within the full site editing experience. Now, it's not a biggie because it's super simple to sort out. With a quick search of the repo, you'll find quite a few Gutenberg carousel blocks to slam into your website. Plus, likely, if you're using any sort of page builder block or otherwise, it will come with a carousel. But you know me, I like to keep things slim. So I don't like to use a page builder, even a block-based page builder, if I can get away with it. And if I just need a carousel, then I head over to the repo and get a particular carousel that's been working very well for me. But this isn't just a kind of like, install the plugin and, away you go. I want to show you some creative ways of using the carousels and the different context in which you can get some amazing presentations sorted out for your WordPress websites. And there's a couple of sneaky ones in there as well. So watch out for that towards the end of the video. Anyway, here we go. It's WordPress carousel blocks. Right then, carousels and sliding, no less. The carousel block, Sply carousel block, using the Sply library. Thank you, David Jensen, for this really quite beautiful little bit of kit. I mean, there are other carousel blocks in the plugin repo. This one's just got, this edges it for me with just a couple of features. We'll get into those in a little bit. Plugin's installed and activated. It is a standard vanilla install of WordPress with just a few pages and content added with the starter block theme version 2 installed. That's my theme. It's free. Link is in the description. Let's have a look at some of those pages then. We have got classic carousel here. You can swipe and you can use the arrows or the dot navigation there. Pretty standard setup. Put whatever you want in the individual carousel slides. Getting onto that in a second too. But you can do quite a bit more with this, and this is why I quite like it. We go have a look at our home page. You see we can have what essentially is a full-on slider. Different content, different images, all that sort of stuff. We're going to jump into the back end in just a second to show you how all this works. But there is a bit more. There's plenty more. Check this out. Full viewport, full height, full width, background slider with that cheeky navigation over the top. Going to show you how to do all of that. This is the same plugin, different content, different stuff. But yes, there is more. Check this out. Here's a kind of popular way of doing sort of carousel content. You see here, we've got this kind of like full width, but only on one side. It sort of bleeds off to the right-hand side and you can slide through. And I've had this presentation requested in a few designs in the last few months as it happens. So we'll show you how to do that as well. Very easy stuff. But there is another thing here. You see, we've got the buttons down here. Now that is not part of the carousel block, David's carousel block settings. That is done with a very cheeky bit of JavaScript, and we're going to show you how to do that as well. Because if you look at the regular arrows, left and right, buttons, they work as you would expect, but there's no option to put those down into a different area. And I'll show you how easy it is to do that with a little bit of cheeky JS, and don't worry, all the code is available for download. You won't have to type it out. Right, shall we go to the back end and have a look at our pages and see how all these are made up? We go to pages. So we go to our pages, and just very quickly, I'll just create a new page and we'll go to stick in a splied carousel just to show you how it's made up. So you start off with just the container and then you add an empty slide, or you could just add an image. Add an empty slide. Great. So now underneath our main container, we've got a carousel item, and you can just keep adding item after item. And you can basically put anything you want in there. Any block you like. Very cool. So let's go and have a look at how we constructed those pages quickly. I'm not going to take you through building out each separate one. You'll kind of get the feel for it yourselves with that respect. But if we open up the About page with that sort of standard-ish carousel, we see we've got some items here. Let's open up the group and the splied carousel that's in there. You see we've got 5 items. And we can scroll through them and just see how they're constructed. And inside of each one is another group. Very handy if you want to utilize things like spacing and top level stuff for like colors and backgrounds and what have you. Because on the actual item itself, there isn't an actual heck of a lot you can do, but you don't need to, because you can do all that blocks you put inside it. Very cool. So yeah, just a very simple carousel, and you can see that we've got the arrows set here. If we look at the actually, let's get back to our main carousel container. You see we've got options for what type it is, whether it's a fade, a loop, slide. Get onto fades a little bit later. That's the goal. Slides per how many to show, how many to move per click or swipe, direction, arrows and pagination, to turn those on and off as I mentioned. You can set some slider widths and heights and all that sort of stuff. Spacing, very important. So if you want to, give it a bit more spacing between slides, happy days. Autoplay, very handy. Just the usual stuff. Great that there's breakpoints for tablet. You could set them and how many slides you want per breakpoint, which is awesome. And that's pretty much it. That's all you need to know for now. You can crack on and start making slides out of the box. Get your content in. You're sliding away. Let's have another look at our pages and get to our home page. And this is why I do like this carousel block, is that here we've got what is essentially a carousel with 3 items in it. And inside each item is just a cover. So you'd make a cover like you'll just make for a single hero section. And that's cool because then you can have a super dynamic display of however many you want and a bit of movement on your page. Just looks like a regular slider. And I will talk about the overhead that this brings into your page, but it's almost nothing. So I love that, being able to use a cover as you would do normally, but turn that into a slider, a full-on slider. Fabulous. Let's have a look at this services page. Now that's the one with the full browser presentation. Let's get that back up on the front end. We'll show you that. So yeah, I mean, really slick. Now you will obviously notice that the header is in front of the slide. So this is the one where we just need to do a little bit of tweaking. Super simple. Let me show you how you do that. So I've got the carousels. Where are they? That's what we want. So when we look at our group, you see it's very similar to the fixed width cover thing going on. And inside each one of these is those said covers. That is the whole content. So the trick here is that on the covers, we've got to make these fellas first up 100 view height, whereas we had I think it was probably 500 px was the height of our covers on our general sort of top of the page thing. That gives us the full height. And on the group, we set that as full width, and we set the slide carousel as full width too. So we've got the entire browser viewport. Super cool. Now, let me just take us into the CSS for the site. So this is the blank block starter theme CSS file here. Let's just scroll to where that is. So full screen carousel. Now I'm just going to turn this off for a second because that's the end result. Save that. Get back to our carousel. Now you see on this group we have got a margin top of minus 90 px. Now that is because our header has a fixed height of 90 px. So let's just get rid of that for a second. Show you what that looks like on the front end with everything turned off. And you see you will get the header where it should be and the carousel slider straight below it. And you see that now we've actually got that 90 px because it's this container is saying be full height. But it's so simple to sort out. First up, we've got to put back our minus 90 px on our group margin, so minus 90. Then that's going to be pulled up to the top of the page, to the top of the header. Let's go have a look at what that looks like. Refresh that, and you see there's something not quite right here. You can just about see it as it's fading in and out. You can just see the header coming back and going away. Now the situation here is that the flow, the HTML of the page is saying, here's my header, here's my carousel, and I'm saying, please put my carousel 90 px higher. It's going to sit in front of the header. Let's sort that out. And that's what some of this CSS is on our back end. So what I've done here is I have said for this page, so if you go to our page and inspect, you see that each page will have a class on it that is to do with the actual ID of the page. You could use a different template for this and kind of have a more global approach to it, but this is just a quick way of showing you kind of like the mechanics of how it works. So I'm saying for page ID 14, I'm saying underneath this class, take the header and give it a Z index of a huge amount. This will basically put that header in front of our carousel. Save that back up. Go back to our front end. And there we go. It's sitting in front. Isn't that cool? And this is just to say, okay, for all the text in the header, make it white. You may need to do a bit of tweaking with that, and you may even need to swap out your logo, indeed, if your logo doesn't look great on a darker background. So that's very cool. Full width, full height presentations, very, very, very slick. Right, what else have we got? Well, we've got our rather cheeky off canvas. Let's close that up. Slightly off canvas carousel. Very modern, very slick. Brilliant for mobile, by the way. And don't forget, we've got to work out how to put these buttons down here, these arrows down here. Let's go look at that on our page. Now, I will warn you, this is a little bit more work involved in this, but it is actually really quite simple. And of course, all the code for this is in the description below. Check that out if you want to. So let's go to our contact page, open that up in a new tab, and here we go. Here's our carousel, and you see even on the preview in the editor we've got that padding on the left. So how's that done? Well, it's really actually very, very, very simple. So what this is like, the default width for the page, the site width is 1140px, 1140px. So you can see that here, and you can see that sort of represented in the footer here as well. So on this section here, the first thing we had to do was make this full width. Then we use a sneaky bit of CSS using the mighty calc property to calculate how much space we need on the left based on the fact that we know that our standard page content width is 1140. Bear with. Let's have a look at what that CSS looks like. So if we go here, we got one side full width. I'm not sure how to phrase that, but you see what it's saying. It says, so on the padding left, calculate 100% of the full width, which I can tell you this current browser is 1920 pixels. It's saying take that full width minus the standard width of the content width and divide it by 2 and shove that on the left hand side. I mean, it is quite simple, but do take a breath and, explore a bit further. And that's kind of it. That will give us that modern, slick, off canvas vibe. But what about these buttons? Well, this is a little bit more involved and takes a bit more CSS and a very special bit of JavaScript. Thank you once again, ChatGPT. You are so wonderful. Let's just talk about, we won't talk about the CSS for a second. Let's talk about the JavaScript. So what I'm doing here, in fact, let's just jump to the back end. Now, you see I've got this group down here. Now, that group has got a class on it called custom arrows. You with me? So what this JavaScript is saying, it's saying, well, look for the container, which is our main container pad left, so that we can start to look in places for our custom arrows. So we set all these constants that will identify the things on the page. There's a few double checks here, and I've commented out the console logs. But all the code is available for download in the description. If everything's cool, when we've got arrows and we've got carousels on our page, then it just says, would you mind taking the div which it contains the arrows, picking it up and plopping it in our custom arrows div? It's simple as that. It looks way more complicated, and like I said, I did have to get a little help from ChatGPT to get this one over the line. But essentially, it allows you to give a feature that is not in the plugin without you having to find a different plugin or get custom development done or hack the plugin or all that sort of stuff. Little bit of cheeky JavaScript to the rescue as always. So there you go, carousel block. We've got a ton of different versions and use cases. Enjoy. Links are in the description to download some of those blocks and the JS code for that sneaky one at the end. And if you'd like a little bit more block theming action, check out this for your next video. But until next time, I shall see you later.